welcome to today's Missouri 4-H Facebook Live session. My name is Tracy Moore. I'm a County Engagement Specialist headquartered in Sheraton County. If you don't know where that's at, I'd suggest when we're done, go see if you can find a map that's got the Missouri counties on it and see if you can find me. I also cover Saline and Carroll counties as well. So today we're going to talk about some horse stuff. Really, we're going to talk about some horse maintenance stuff, and I'm not talking about grooming and feeding and watering. We're going to talk more about health, horse health. And this information is good for those that have a horse, those that want to get a horse, or those that just want to know more about horses. So, internal parasites. Like most species, horses can get internal parasites. Worms. One type of worm that a horse can get are the strongyle worms. These guys are small and they are large. There's kind of two different types of this strongyle worm. And they're also called bloodworms. These guys can affect a horse of any age, but they really seem to gear towards the younger horses. They will go and they'll hang out in the arteries around the intestines, where they will cause blood vessels to enlarge. They can cause blood clots, which can slow or even clog up the flow of blood in those arteries, which, as you can probably guess, in those veins, you can probably guess, will cause you some trouble. They can also cause damage to the artery walls. Another type is the ascarids. These also really like to cause trouble for the younger horses. They're found really in the younger horses that are 2 years and under, those that are growing. And these guys don't suck blood, but they can be big. They can grow up to be 10 to 12 inches long, so like a foot long or so. These are a little bit different, whereas they will go to the liver and the lungs. They'll grow and develop there, but then the horse will actually cough them up and swallow them back down, where they'll end up going onto the intestine to complete their life cycle. Here is a diagram from one of our MU guide sheets that shows the life cycle of these types of worms. So they start out as an egg in the feces. They grow and develop into the larvae. The larva then crawls off onto the grass where the horse ingests him. And then he'll go to the horse's body part or area that worm really likes to be at and lay their eggs and do their thing and then be excreted in the feces again to start the whole process over. So worms can be kind of a nuisance for a horse to horse, and then for us to treat. They are treatable, but it's just, they are kind of a pain. Another type of worm are the tapeworms. You probably have heard of tapeworms before. Yes, people can get tapeworms too, but on the horse side of things, tapeworms usually affect the horses that are 6 months and older, so those that are eating grass probably really well. Tapeworms, their eggs are actually eaten up by a mite, and that mite then goes and crawls off onto the grass where the horse eats that mite, and then they go into the horse. And they like to hang out in the junction between the small and large intestines. I would say the one that most, interests me is the bot. Bots are, like I said, interesting to me, but they're also kind of different from the others. The bot will affect a horse of any age, and as an adult, a mature, they are actually called a bot fly. And I found a picture off the internet, so thank you to whoever posted this, and I hope you don't mind that I'm using it. A bot fly actually looks a lot like a honeybee. I've actually been around people who's around their horses, and they take off running, yelling, "A bee, a bee, a bee!" I'd say 95% of the time when I get up there, if I go up there, it's not a bee, it's actually a bot fly. So what these guys do is they actually lay eggs on your ends of your horse's hair, usually around their legs, their chest, maybe around their muzzle. It can be other parts too, but that's really where you really see them. Their eggs are yellow, they're small. Sometimes they might be confused with pollen. You might go up there and think it's pollen and try to wipe it off, but it's not going to come off very easy. So once they lay their eggs on your horse's hair, those eggs will grow to and develop into a larva. Again, here's another guide sheet clip about the bot cycle. They'll develop into that larva. the horse might reach around to bite at his leg or his side or wherever this larva's at, and to take care of an itch and get him in his mouth. Once he's in his mouth, he'll kind of embed into the tongue or the gums or somewhere like that for about a week, where he'll grow and he'll develop. Then he comes out of that area, the horse swallows it. It goes to the horse's stomach, where it attaches to the stomach wall, and it can actually spend months there. They usually overwinter there. And then comes springtime, it lets go of the stomach wall and it works its way through the rest of the digestive system to the ground. Once it's on the ground, it will actually again grow and develop into the botfly, and the whole process starts all over again. So for botflies, like I said earlier, they're really hard to get off, or for the bot eggs, they're really hard to get off of your horse. So you can wash them and really scrub to get those eggs off, or you can get a pair of clippers and clip them off. For your other worms to help prevent and treat, you can go to your vet. You can a lot of times go to your local horse supply store and pick up some paste, and you can give them the paste orally. Just watch what kind of paste you get, because there are a lot of different kinds out there of wormer. So wormer A might treat for a few types of worms, and wormer B might treat for a few different types of worms. So it's sometimes suggested to stay on a good worming routine, and you might want to worm with type A today and next time work with type B, or a few days later worm again with a type B, to make sure you're covering all the bases and getting rid of all of those possibilities of worms. So it's a good idea to have a good relationship with a vet to help you work through some health issues, because horses, just like us, can end up sick. And they also need vaccines, just like we do. So there are certain things that we can vaccinate for, such as tetanus, equine influenza, and West Nile disease. West Nile disease is one that is carried by mosquitoes. There are others that are carried by flies. The equine infectious anemia, also known as swamp fever, can be carried by flies, but it is also very contagious and can be transferred from horse to horse. There is a test called the Coggins test. And again, if you have that good relationship with that vet, he'll probably recommend doing, definitely if you're going to be transporting your horse somewhere, if you're going to be selling a horse or something like this. And this test is actually a blood draw. So the vet will draw some blood from your horse and send it off to a lab. Usually it takes a few days to get it back, unless you're one of those lucky ones that's close to the lab. And so it could be as quick as 24 hours, but normally for us it's quite a few days before we get that results back. When those results come back, you're looking for a negative one. You want a negative result. The swamp fever, or equine infectious anemia, it can cause your horse to really have a rapid breathing rate. They can sweat, they can run a high fever, they could go off of their food, but they'll lose weight, and it is a pretty fatal disease. About, I think it's 50 to 70% of horses don't come out of this one. There are some cases that are known around, it seems like each year. So it's one that we really try to keep an eye on. Some other things that are kind of external parasites that we kind of try to keep an eye on are any kind of mite or lice, and again, those nasty flies and mosquitoes, which are the ones that I really want to focus on today, because again, they can transfer some of these terrible diseases that our horses can get. Plus they're just annoying. We all know that. They are so annoying. If you've ever been bit by a fly or even a horse fly, you know that really can hurt. Same with mosquitoes. They can sometimes really hurt. So a horse can spend a lot of time trying to shoo them off. They might turn their head and swing their head around and bite at their side to get rid of a fly. They stomp their feet and swish their tails, and if it's bad enough, they may lay down and roll to get rid of flies, or they might even go running across the field because they're being chased by the flies so much. So good things to help keep fly and pest number down is to watch where you're putting your manure. If you have a compost pile, try to make sure it's away from your stalls or your barn for as far as you can get it away without it being too much of a hassle, to help keep those down and keep those stalls clean. Another way is to maybe make some fly traps, and that's what we're going to do today. Is we are actually going to make a fly trap using a 2-liter bottle. I'm not that creative. I did not get this come up with this from my brain. I did find this from the Junior Master Horseman's book that I got from AQHA here a while back. So thank you to those guys, and I hope they don't mind that we're going to try out their fly trap. So I'll tell you what you're going to need, and then I'll give you a little bit of time to go get your supplies, and we will make a fly trap. And while you're gathering your supplies, if anybody already has your supplies, I will tell you a little about my history with horses. So you're of course going to need a 2-liter bottle. It can be whatever color. If you prefer to be able to check out what you've caught in your fly trap in the end, you might want to get a clear bottle, but all I had is a green one, so I'm going to use a green one. So grab a 2-liter bottle, a pair of good kitchen scissors, a string, if you want to go ahead and cut it maybe a foot or so long, but a good string, a hole punch, probably a single hole punch, one of those long ones that will cut out 3 holes at a time. Not going to work. And maybe a knife, a sharp knife, an ice pick or something like that to poke a hole in your 2-liter bottle. And then the other thing that you could gather while you're out is an adult or someone with strong hands, because like I said, we're going to have to poke some holes in this bottle and do some cutting. So you might need an extra set of hands and a tough pair of hands that can help you cut some of this stuff out. All right, so I'll give you a minute or two to go gather your stuff. So for those that already have your supplies all gathered up, I'll tell you a little bit about my history with horses. I've been around horses the majority of my life. I showed horses in 4-H and through one of our local circuits. I've done some trail riding, and when I went to college, I actually ended up with a degree in farm management with an equine emphasis. Once out of college, I pretty well stuck to trail riding. I actually have 5 horses here at home. For myself, I don't have a specific breed. I have an Appaloosa, a Foxtrotter, 2 quarter horses, and an Arabian. So I can't say I'm a specific breed person. I like about anything. Right now I have 3 girls that do some trail riding with me, and 2 of those are old enough and they're starting to show horses in 4-H. Work-wise, I am currently, for the last couple years, been helping on the Missouri 4-H Equine Tour. If you don't know what that is, you might check that out sometime. So really, I've been around horses my whole life. I enjoy riding horses, and my girls seem to be growing up and really liking them. All right, so hopefully you have all your supplies. So now we're going to make our fly trap using our 2-liter bottle. So the first thing is that you're going to need to do, move my chair out of the way, is you can take your cap off. You don't need it. You can throw it away. And we are going to cut the label off of whatever kind of bottle, 2-liter bottle you have. So you can throw your trash away too. You don't need your label anymore. Alright, so the next, oops, I still have some left. Alright. I like to take my bottle and kind of squeeze them in a little bit, because the next thing you're going to do is you're going to poke a hole in it. So that way you can get your scissors in there and then cut it in half. So the first thing I'm going to do is use my knife. You can use an ice pick if your scissors are really good. You can use your scissors, but please be careful. We don't want anybody cut. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to poke a little hole in there so I can get my scissors in it. You want to do it about halfway. Some of these these bottles can be kind of tough. Alright, so I've got my hole. So now I'm just going to cut it in half. Cut my bottle right in half. I like these fly traps because they're pretty inexpensive. And they're pretty easy to make, so if they get really nasty and full of flies and ants and whatever might crawling them, you can just pitch them and start over. And I am not known to be able to cut a straight line. So I couldn't cut a straight line if I had to save my life with it. Okay, so now I have my 2 halves. So next, I'm going to put my top into my bottom. And then I'm going to want to cut this part off so they're even, because ultimately what I'm going to do is I'm going to need to poke a hole through both sides of this to be able to slip a string in. I'm going to do some more trimming. This one fits. Oh, I just about cut a straight line with this one. And they're fitting in there kind of snug. I don't want them in there too tight, but in there kind of snug. I think I can get my hole punch over it. Yay, I can. So the next step is to punch a hole in each side. Right across from each other, because this is where you're going to attach your string. And these can be tough too. There, and right across from that hole, poke another. Oops. All right. Now I have to line the holes back up. Okay, next up is your string. Like I said, you might have already cut it, but you want, I don't know, a foot or so. Doesn't really matter, just long enough to get it through there and to be able to hang it when you're done. And then slip your string through the inside to be able to tie your knot. You can just tie a knot in the end, and you want to make your knot big enough where it won't pull back through your hole. That should work. You can trim the strings off if you want at the end. And you do the same on the other side. Again, tie a knot big enough so it won't fall through or pull through the hole. For my string, I tied it about 3 times. Just like that. See that? Just like that. Not hard. There it is. So, most likely, you're not going to get flies in an empty fly trap. So you can pull them apart, and it's a good idea to put a piece of raw meat or a piece of ripe fruit in the bottom to attract the flies to your fly trap. Once you get that in there, stick them back together, pull your string back up, and you can take it out and hang it in a tree or on a pole or wherever. It's a good idea, they say, to hang them in a shady spot so they can start attracting your flies. And then if you want, if you have that clear bottle, I can kind of see through my green one, you can go check out and see what kind of flies and bugs you might have caught. Try to put it up high enough where it's away from rodents and other animals that might like to get to your meat or your fruit that you're using for bait in your fly trap. And I think that's about all I have for you today. There are some other things that you might want to consider and think about for horse health, maintenance, safety kind of stuff, such as with it being springtime, when your horses are with all this lush, fresh grass out there, watch out for founder and laminitis. If they get out there and get to eating too much of that nice, fresh, lush grass, they might not want to step away from that plate too awful bad, which can cause some harm to your horse, can cause them to get pretty fat, can cause them to get laminitis or lead to laminitis and founder. And the other thing to think about is colic. Colic is really when a horse has an upset stomach and they get pretty bad bellyache. It could be anywhere from a mild case or to a really severe case where the horse could end up dying from it. With colic, they can colic for many different reasons. We had a horse last July that colicked. My daughter went out and she rode for a while, and then she took her horse out and gave her some grain, and that didn't suit with her stomach too well. So what to do if your horse gets colic is you might need to call your vet. There's a shot sometimes that they can give to help them out with that. A horse with colic may kind of stretch themselves out, they may kick at their stomach, they may turn their head around and bite at their stomach, they could lay down and roll, they may lay down and not want to get back up very bad at all. They could also get really, really sweaty. If your horse does colic, if you can get them back up if they are laying down and walk them, and that helps a lot. Seems to help a lot. Gets their guts going again and tries to help get things back to going like normal. Like I said, there's lots of different ways and reasons why horses colic, but colic seems to be a very common thing across our country with horses. Cribbing is another thing, and that's where a horse will grab onto a fence or a gate or something and with their teeth, and then they'll suck in some wind and they might swallow it. They could just chew on the gates, which can hurt their teeth, but it can also hurt getting that wind inside, and it can of course tear up your gates and your fences too. Well, thank you guys for your time. That's all I have today. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about internal parasites and getting to make a fly trap and some of that kind of stuff, and we will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Thanks.